Hi, I want to talk about what's actually happening astrologically in the world on a really practical level. Um, Everything that I've done over 50 years that I've been working with anything alternative, after I completed my science training, has been focused on how does this really apply? How can this be applied in the real world of people's true experience? And it doesn't make any sense particularly now, getting all into the whole idealism of alternative thinking or alternative sciences without bringing them into what does it mean practically for real people in the real world. Otherwise, it's just a group of people, saying we're enlightened in one way or another and different and separating out and saying this gives us an advantage, but, the ignorant people don't get it. And that's a complete and utter waste of time from my point of view. The world isn't full of ignorant people. The world is full of people who don't know about things. I don't know about a whole range of things. You ask me my password on a particular site and I scrabble around looking for it. It's I'm just hopeless at remembering that sort of stuff and hopeless at remembering where I actually wrote it down so I didn't forget. And yet other people are just very good at organising that, putting it somewhere, remembering it. They advise me on how to do it, and I take their advice, and then I forget where I did it. So, I'm one of those ignorant people when it comes to passwords. But when you get me in contact with things like astrology and numerology and things like human design, it's just like I know what I'm doing and I know what needs to be done because it's a gift I have, as we all have gifts. And that gift is to know how to bring it up to date and bring it down to earth so that it makes sense to people and it helps people in their real lives. How you don't get caught up in the jargon, how you don't get caught up in the in-crowd language or languaging, how you make it simple and easy to relate to and very practical and very profoundly insightful so it really helps people. And along with that, in my life, I've been learning the skill to get to the point and really, bang, this is what it can do, and becoming better and better at doing that. And these skills are all coming to a head now, historically, because there are things happening in the next month that really demand that we get things clear that are rather abstract or different outside normal science or normal thinking in whatever society you're in. That we get clear the healing of that sort of separation, the enlightened ones and the everyday people and all that sort of stuff, is in getting clear on what we want. And then taking all forms of technology, including the internet and cell phones and all of that, and bringing it down to earth. So it's a real value in the practical world to real people who live in the world. And that involves consciousness, it involves technology, it involves the internet, everything that is bringing us together in various ways in groups and as a humanity and connecting us up and making us more conscious. Well, the essence of the next 7 years is going to be Does it make you conscious of how to get value out of being in the physical world and how to give value to who you are in the physical world? It involves decision making. It involves handling money. It involves being loyal to yourself and your own physical nature, your own design. And it means being loyal and bringing that loyalty and extending it to others in terms of respecting their uniqueness and their value. So it's a very profound time that we're in, and the turning points are happening. Today's the 13th of February. And today has been like, wake up to this. It's time, it's about to happen. And tomorrow, on the 14th of February, Mars goes into Taurus for a couple of months, which means we've been looking at what do we want since the beginning of the year. What do we really want since December, really, into the last couple of months? What are we doing? What do we really want to do as individuals in various ways? But you can see it in society. What are these people doing in politics? What are these people doing in technology? Who's doing something really honest and straightforward in, the internet or in terms of sharing? And now for the next 2 months, it's like, well, are they doing anything that really is valuable in the practical world, that adds value, that I need to be aware of? And if it's of value, what do I do with it? How do I apply it in the physical world? Now, that's a short-term thing. But a few days later, on the 18th of February, Chiron, which is an influential asteroid, you could say, Chiron, it has a 51-year cycle. And the time it spends in each area, each sign, in each energy varies because it's not a perfectly circular one. And it's coming out of Pisces and going into Aries. Now that's a big deal. For the next 51 years, we're starting fresh in a new cycle. Now, what is Chiron about? Well, people call it healing and magic and that, but what it really does is it sits between Saturn, which is the structure of our world in simple terms, and Uranus, which is innovation and invention of new possibilities and new technologies, becoming more conscious. Saturn makes sure that you've got a structure in your world that actually works. If you come up with a great consciousness and a great idea, Saturn demands it works practically. You can build it into the structure of your life. If you build a structure in your life, Uranus says, okay, now, what's the future possibilities of this? Or if you're an authority, are you acting consciously and helping people? If you have boundaries, is there room within those boundaries for growth and development of technology, of consciousness, of relationships between people? If you've got this freedom to relate and this new technology and these new ideas, do you have appropriate boundaries so that they can actually take form? Is there structure so it can take form in the real world? And Chiron sits right in the middle. It's not invention and innovation. It's not out there. It's not alternative. It's not new age. And it's not conservative and practical and structural like Saturn. it's this lovely blend of both. It's what brings them together. What shows them, it shows you in your life and people in the world where you can get the best out of both, where you can be right out on the cutting edge and at the same time really pragmatic and bring real worth to the world, something that's sustainable over time, something that can be built into the structure of life, that has a certain boundary or discipline or function to it that really helps. And Chiron has just spent quite a number of years in Pisces, which has been, in a sense, healing all the alternative New Age stuff and imagination and saying what's useful there in all the innovation. I was born before the New Age started and I was there when it passed away. It's like all this alternative stuff, what's really useful there and what's cutting edge and how can they blend together, or what's just so far out there it has nothing to do with the real world. And what does history teach us about how you apply innovation and invention and new possibilities and new ideas? Because people come up with new ideas, but often the consequences are dramatically not what you want. Like socialism and communism created more death in the world than any other ism in a really short period of time. Now, all the other isms do, but this did it on a grand scale when you look at history in the world. So how do you get this balance? And imagination and spirituality is an important part of our life. But there's been a lot of healing there, again, where it's just wild imagination or spirituality that's delusional. And that can manifest all the way down to the opioid crisis and drugs and drinking and bad health and all that sort of stuff, to people having delusions about how things work in the real world, or choosing victim or martyr as their approach to life and basing everything on that unspoken choice or decision. And Chiron's moving out of that. We've had all of that in our face over the last decades. And it's meant to bring out what is truly healthy, healing, magical in the sense of it gives you results greater than you would have predicted logically. And at the same time, made it clear that you can't go all imagination and no logic, nor can you go the other way. All alternative, but no enjoyment, or leaving other people out and not respecting their personal sovereignty and their personal creativity, getting everyone to all align with the same beliefs. We've been through a lot of that over the last decades. I'm talking last decade and a half. It's been a lot of that, maybe two decades. And now we're moving into, okay, Chiron's going, do you want this balance? Because if that's what you want, I can show you how to create it between practicality and being conscious and, on the cutting edge. And what can you do that'll bring in the magic but make sense to practical people? What can you do to bring out the magician in you and still have a real job and do something that really is meaningful? Who are you? Are you all just physical, or is there more to you? What is that more, and how do the two work together? In one of the things that I work in very deeply in human design is, you're a body and a consciousness. How do you get the two to work together? That's what brings out your capacity to make great decisions, to do what you're designed to do, and at the same time receive the support you need to do it. So this is a very significant time, 5 days from now, lasting for actually more than 7 years, because Chiron moves slowly where it is at the moment. It's going to be around for maybe a decade or so. Going, okay, it's time to heal our desires and get clear on what we truly want. It's time to heal our individuality, upgrade it, make it more conscious but more down to earth at the same time. It's a beautiful time, but it's going to involve a lot of bringing together on all sorts of levels, your mind and your body working together, people who are different than each other working together, people with different cultures and belief systems, people with different political views working together. And it's not now based on compromise. There may be compromises, which come up with a better solution than either could imagine. But it's not about compromising just to get along. It's about taking this point of view and that point of view and creating something greater. 1 + 1 = 11. That's what it's about. Come up with a bit, you've got problems. Oh, the company wants me to do this because it's going to endanger people, but the customers won't buy it, we'll lose customers. Well, how do you present what needs to be presented so that the customer actually wants to get involved with it rather than wants to leave you and do something easier and simpler? How do you create something that is so attractive to them and gives you the safety results you're trying to achieve as a company, but it attracts them to do it, and not by seducing them mentally, but by its obvious practical value. And they feel valued because they're consulted. So, I was talking to someone today doing consultation about making sure the salespeople who have to deal with people in the real world are consulted and asked to, they come up with the problems, well, encourage them and support them in coming up with the solutions, because they know what's actually going on better than anybody, because they deal with these people. So there's that, and that's starting in a few days' time, 14th, about the 18th of February. And then on the 6th of March, Uranus, which is this innovative one I've been talking about, moves into Taurus for 7 years. It's been in Aries now for 7 years. And Uranus is to do with consciousness, with technology, with networking and groups. It's being out there in the future, being on the cutting edge. And it's been, let's be on the cutting edge. Technology over the last 7 years has gone through a massive growth in just doing technology. Just let's get it out there. This can really do something for you. And let's get innovative in what we want to do. Come up with all sorts of ideas and consciousness, and some which work, some which don't, but it's like they're everywhere. And now Uranus is moving into Taurus. It's like, okay, feet on the ground, down to earth. Where's the value? Where's something where you raise your consciousness in a way that has value for putting your feet on the ground and dealing with what you have to deal with in the real world, that brings value to customers, to friends, to your groups, your partner. Makes, opens up new possibilities, opens up the future, but in a way where, like one thing I'm doing is is planting tamarind trees in land and helping them grow. Now, how's that going to be of value? Well, my whole family's going to benefit out of it. Trust me, they know much more about it than I do. All right? But I've tasted tamarinds and they're good. You know, it's how do you bring consciousness and apply it in the real world where it has true value, where it adds value to, not make everybody conform to a particular way of thinking or idea or approach. How do you allow people to be different and unique, Uranus, and at the same time appreciate their value, the value that they bring to the table? How do you use technology in a way that has value to normal people, everyday people, not nerds? How do you take the fact that there's so many different platforms and make them so that you can work on any platform and still relate to another platform without it becoming like filling your head with all sorts of technical details or writing down millions of passwords, and which is one of my complaints is just all this stuff. User-friendly, a nicer experience in the physical world, and bringing out the real value of consciousness, not getting everyone to agree or follow the same ideal. But what is the real value of consciousness being in the physical world? What is the real value of technology? And trust me, in the next 7 years, from all the things I've seen, it's going to be hard to even recognise. It's growing so fast. But with that growth, how can we keep our feet on the ground and make it work in the real world? So with things that I work with, numerology, astrology, I've been bringing it down to earth for decades and decades. But then when you combine them together, which happens in human design, it's a great way of appreciating a person's value, what they bring to the table, and what they need so they can bring it to the table. How they attract the support they need so they can do what they're designed to do. And then make decisions that really work for them. Decisions on what to accept and what to do that brings out the very best in them and adds value to other people's lives. That time, if you just take what I've talked about till now, that time has come, which is why a lot of the work that I'm doing now, I mean, in my master design classes where I talk with people one-on-one and work with them over 9 months, that's becoming so obvious, and it's been becoming obvious for a year or two now, a couple of years, just how practical this can be. How we can talk for a whole session on really practical things and hardly mention any human design, but when it is mentioned, it just drives the point home and says, this is the way you're made to work. So, you know, what we're talking about, this will work for you. And they're going, yeah, well, it always has when I've given it a chance. And when I don't, it doesn't seem to work. It's like, as they used to say in science classes, way, way back, QED, which is Latin for basically there it is, it's proved. You know, it just speaks for itself. So, and taking human design to a whole level where we just take so much of the jargon and look, for people who want to study it like a mechanic wants to study a car, fantastic. But so many people just want to get out there and drive it and enjoy the experience and get them where they want to go. And human design and all these other alternative sciences can be presented in a way where they really do make sense to people. Like so many things I did 50 years back when I first entered the hippie thing can now be used in a very useful way. Or they can be just sidetracks that take you way out of contact with real life. Science has even become like that. Okay, now how do we use it in a way that truly, how do we use logic without killing imagination? How do we use imagination to allow new possibilities to arise, and then logic to study how it works and see where the real value is, get rid of the things that don't make sense and really establish this will help. And how do we blend the two together so you know what works, you know what's right for you, you know what to accept, and you know what you can do. This is an extraordinary time we're in, because it's not just exponential growth in technology, it's exponential growth in us, and not just our consciousness, but our ability to bring that down, that the value of that, the important, the meaningful parts of that down to earth, so that it adds value to our real lives and then reaches out and touches the lives of many, many, many other people. The people we care about, the people we love, and beyond that. So for some of you, you're getting emails, if you're on my email list, about where we're going to next in developing this. For those of you who don't, who see this and you'd like to, you can contact me at cp@christopherjpower.com, send me an email, and we'll put you in somewhere, wherever it is you want to go, so that you're in the loop. But for the rest of you, it's just, wow. So many clients have said to me in consultations, they go, is the pace of change that's happening now going to continue? And I say, yeah, probably for at least a few decades, as far as I know. 2-3 decades out there. Beyond that, not sure. But this is something we're growing into. This is like growing up. There's so much involved. And you can either rebel, or you can come to grips with it and come and use it in the real world. You know, like people like Jordan Peterson taking psychology and making it relatable to real world people. So it brings the common sense and the sense of responsibility that is so needed when you have more freedom. You know, a lot of freedom with no responsibility disempowers you. Freedom and responsibility together will make you powerful and give you the power to deal with the changes that are going on. Responsibility is so important. And the more free you become, the more responsible you have to. So if what I'm doing can contribute to that, and I've got a ton of experience, 70 years experience with all this stuff, if I can help you, contact me. If we can work together, great, look into it. If this gives you a perspective on what's happening and opens the doors to you to take advantage of it and to contribute to it, fantastic. Fantastic. Because that's what the rest of my life is committed to doing. Opening the doors for people, sharing my experience, what I've learned, what's unique about me, in a way that adds real value. And not just intellectually as a distraction, but practically in business, in relationships, in real people's lives. In building something that you can be proud of and pass to your children. And do it and enjoy doing it. Because there are so many changes, like wars become, it hasn't become redundant, but taking it to the extreme, it's too much of a lose-lose. It's running out of time. We might push it further, I don't know, but it's become a no-win option unless it's contained. So we're going to need to look for better options, not to eliminate conflict between people, that's going to take a while, but to encourage people to take conflict, to take differences and turn them into assets. Uranus into Taurus. Turn our differences into assets so we can work together, become more consciousness, and create a better future. Because that's the opportunity we have now and in these next years coming. Hope you enjoyed that. Talk to you again soon.